Text 45. Try Gunya Vishaya Veda, Nishtray Gunya Pavarjan. Nirdvando, Nitya Sattvasto, Nir Yogashima Atmavan. A very nice verse. It says, the Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature. O Arjuna, become transcendental to these three modes. Be free from all duality and from all anxiety. Gain and safety and be established in the self. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. All material activities involve actions and reactions in the three modes of material nature. They are meant for fruitive results, which cause bondage in the material world. The Vedas deal mostly with fruitive activities to gradually elevate the general public from the field of sense gratification to a position on the transcendental plane. Arjuna, as a student and friend of Lord Krishna, is advised to raise himself to the transcendental position of Vedanta philosophy, where in the beginning there is Brahma Jigyasa, or questions on the supreme transcendent. All the living entities who are in the material world are struggling very hard for existence. For them, the Lord, after creation of the material world, gave the Vedic wisdom advising how to live and get rid of the material entanglement. When the activities for sense gratification, namely the Karma Kanda chapter, are finished, then the chance for spiritual realization is offered in the form of the Upanishads, which are part of different Vedas, as the Bhagavad Gita is a part of the fifth Veda, namely the Mahabharata. The Upanishads mark the beginning of transcendental life. As long as the material body exists, there are actions and reactions in the material modes. One has to learn to tolerate, one has to learn tolerance in the face of dualities, such as happiness and distress, or cold and warmth, and by tolerating such dualities, become free from anxieties regarding gain and loss. This transcendental position is achieved in full Krishna consciousness when one is fully dependent on the goodwill of Krishna. Now, this is a very profound verse. And let me read it again. It says, the Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature. O Arjuna, become transcendental to these three modes, be free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety, and be established in the self. Well, uh, then why do we read the Vedas? if the if they're just concerned with the three modes of material nature. It's to give us a possibility to gradually come to a higher state of realization. But how can we understand what is a higher state when we're in the lowest state? So something has to get us out of that lowest state, and that is learning something about the Vedas. The Vedas deal with the three modes of material nature. They are Sattva-guna, Rajaguna, and, uh, and ignorance. Uh, so, how can we, and what can we learn by reading the Vedas? Well, we can learn the difference between the mode of ignorance, the mode of passion, and the mode of goodness. Then, by regular chanting and hearing, we can attain transcendental goodness, Sudasattva. So you have goodness, passion, and ignorance. So when we come gradually from uh, ignorance to passion and then to goodness, then it's possible with proper guidance by bona fide spiritual master to attain transcendental goodness or Sudasattva. At that point, we're completely free from all dualities and from all anxieties for gain and safety. And we're established in the self. In other words, who we really are. So, what does that mean? Who are we really? That is answered. We are the eternal servants of Krishna, or especially Radha and Krishna. But to come to that realization, it requires the help of bona fide spiritual masters. Bona fide spiritual masters who actually follow the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness and are teaching according to the bona fide statements of the acharyas, who are simply repeating the bona fide statements of Krishna. So in the purport, it says, all material activities involve actions and reactions in the three modes of material nature. They are meant for fruitive results, which cause bondage in the material world. The Vedas deal mostly with fruitive activities to gradually elevate the general public from the field of sense gratification to a position on the transcendental plane. Arjuna, as a student and friend of Lord Krishna, is advised to raise himself to the transcendental position of Vedanta philosophy, where in the beginning there is Brahma Jigyasa, or questions on the supreme transcendence. Now, that's a very, very profound statement. We should all have many questions. Why am I suffering? Why is there suffering in the world? Why do I have my memory is very weak? I forget things easily. Why am I getting old? Why am I going to die? There's a million questions. And we need to get a million answers to all these questions. That's why every time I give a class, at the end of the class, I say, are there any questions? And everyone remains silent. Mm-hmm. That means they didn't really listen to the class. But all these questions then will remain unanswered. And there's always going to be questions, more and more questions, the more we become advanced spiritually. Now, is there one answer for every question? No, excuse me. Is there one answer for all questions? Well, yes, there is. The one answer is forgetfulness of Krishna means that you will become entangled in the modes of material nature. So therefore, the ultimate answer for the solution to all problems of life is always be cognizant of Krishna, always remembering Krishna day and night, every day, your whole lifetime. And if you're always remembering Krishna, the best way is to always be chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And also be always engaged in the devotional service of Krishna. Now, chanting is already being engaged in devotional service of Krishna. And then there are other aspects of devotional service that one can perform. But even if they don't perform the other aspects of devotional service, such as serving the deities, such as going on sankirtans, such as cooking for the deities, etc., simply chanting Hare Krishna every day will put the devotee on the transcendental level, because the holy name of Krishna and Krishna are non-different. So therefore, we can easily become transcendentally situated by continual chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. So, if we want to summarize in a few words what is the real goal of Krishna consciousness, it's to always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna. In fact, there's a Sanskrit saying, Smartavya Satatam Vishnu, Vishmartavya Najatachit. This is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 22, 113. Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna at any time. And then Bhagavad Gita, 8th chapter, 8th verse. One's memory of Krishna is revived by chanting the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So these are the two most important things. What does it lead to? It leads to conquering over the repetition of birth and death. Ahistam yat punar janma jayaya. This is how in the great devotees, great pundits, and great transcendental devotees, when they meet each other, they don't say, "Hey, hello, how you doing? What's happening?" No, they say, "Ahistam yat punar janma jayaya." What does that mean? How are your efforts going to conquer over the repetition of birth and death? That's the way they say hello. Because that's the whole point about existence in the material world. We're not meant to stay in the material world eternally. We're meant to be liberated from the material world. So therefore, great devotees, they don't say, hello, how are you? They say, how are your efforts going to free yourself from the repetition of birth and death? Ahistam yat punar janma jayaya. And then, Smartavya Satatam Vishnu Vishmartavya Najatachit. Always remember Krishna and never forget Krishna at any time. You follow those 2 points, you're on a fast, the fast route to go back to Godhead. And how is one's memory of Krishna revived? It's by chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is real knowledge. It's not complicated. However, almost everybody, let's say everybody, is covered in the material world with 5 kinds of ignorance. Point 1, being envious of the Supreme Lord. Point 2, considering death to be the ultimate end of life. Point 3, not knowing anything about the soul. Point 4, the illusion of bodily concept of life. In other words, I, me, and mine. Point 5, to be mad after material sense enjoyment. So these are the 5 kinds of ignorance, or the 5 types of covering of the consciousness of a living entity, or in other words, the 5 kinds of ignorance. How do we become free of this? Well, the first and foremost thing that we have to do is to always stay in the association of genuine devotees. Then we'll be able to rise above these 5 kinds of ignorance. Because in the company of genuine devotees, they're always going to be talking about Krishna and his pastimes and his beautiful transcendental body and so forth. So the more we learn about Krishna, the closer we come to going back to Godhead. Okay, so then the material world has what we call 5 inherent qualities in the material world. They are 1, ignorance; 2, misery; 3, egoism; 4, anger; and 5, envy. These things are covering people. In other words, ignorance, misery, egoism, anger, and envy. And stopping people from understanding their relationship with Krishna. And then we develop these 5 kinds of ignorance. Being envious of Krishna and considering death to be the ultimate goal, to be the ultimate end, and not knowing anything about the soul and the illusion of bodily concept of life, and to be mad or crazy after material enjoyment. So, Krishna advises in the Bhagavad Gita that one should give up all so-called religious activities and completely engage in the devotional service of the Lord to become free from all anxieties due to the dangerous life of material existence. To work situated in Saddharma is the right direction of life. Saddharma means your transcendental dharma. So there's the dharma of people that are still attached to the material world, and the Saddharma for people who are transcendental to material attachments, meaning they're attached to Krishna. So, how do we become attached to Krishna? Well, in the beginning, it's by chanting Hare Krishna and continue without any end, always chanting the holy name of the Lord. And also hearing devotees, bona fide devotees, speaking about the Lord. And only eating prasadam. and going on Sankirtan and reading transcendental literatures like the Bhagavad Gita and so forth. And in general, uh, one says Sat Smartavya Satatam Vishnu Vishmartavya Najatachit. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. That's the summary of all these points. And one's memory of Krishna is revived by chanting the Maha Mantra Hare Krishna. Okay, so there are many more things we can say, but are there any questions? Because, explaining too many things is not good. If you can have one takeaway from a class, that's the best thing. In other words, instead of taking away everything, which is almost impossible unless you have notes, if you learn at least one thing every time there's a class, and you listen to class every day, that means in a short period of time, you'll become very educated spiritually. So, are there any questions about anything I said today?
That five things, like envy and they are all correlated, isn't it? One leads to the other.
I'm not understanding what you're saying. Say it louder.
You mentioned like five things.
Yes.
So they all correlate, like one leads to the other.
Yeah, being envious of the Supreme Lord, considering death to be the ultimate end of life. That's not true. Right? Not knowing anything about the soul, the illusion of the bodily concept of life, and to be crazy after material enjoyment. Those are the five kinds of ignorance that cover the minds of materialistic people. Yes.
The Sanskrit names we read were like Tamishra, Anda Tamishra, Tamas.
Yeah, Tamishra, Anda Tamishra, Tamas, Moha, Maha Moha. Yeah. Yes.
So they're all degrees of ignorance. And you can relate to atheists, to scientists, to, like that. And then Mahamoha is crazy after the
Sense gratification. Yeah.
This is like we went through in I think in 2 days ago there was in Bhagavatam. So your question is like they're all related to.
Aren't they all related in? One leads to the other or not?
One can lead to another, I think. Um, fact that if you're bodily only conscious, then automatically it leads to attachments.
And being a devotee, though we are not, we can't really say like we are not, we would be,
Fully free.
free of all those five. Like somewhere or the other, we still fit in.
We're work in progress, right? So, but yeah, we have to be aware of Maharaj. This question is like, as devotees also, we're not fully free yet sometimes of those ignorances. So
that's a fact. But if you're regularly chanting your rounds and regularly hearing the lectures, you become free. It's that regular hearing every day. And that's why we have class every morning and evening. But actually, Prabhupada wanted morning, afternoon, evening class. We could start that. I don't know who would let me listen in the afternoon. There always will be somebody. But it's very important that we're regularly hearing and repeating. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, right? That is Shravanam, hearing, Kirtanam, repeating, and then Smaranam, remembering. Very important. That should be our life. You know, we should be focused on this hearing and repeating, and then remembering. That's why repetition is very important. Okay, so let's see. It's almost
just
time.
time. Just
Are there any questions that anyone have?
any questions online? Nothing like
Is there anyone online?
we do have about 6 members online.
Okay.
Excuse me, Maharaj, I have a question.
Please.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I have a question. My question is, I had my mom asked this question and I was confused and I wanted to ask somebody. So my question is, why did Krishna create people based on where they live? Like, for example, like they like have an attribute. Like for example, let's say, people have different skin color based on where they live because like I think my mom said like melanin, this particle called melanin.
Yes.
And then so I'm asking why does Krishna do that? What is the particular reason Krishna does that? Because it doesn't, everybody comes from Krishna, so why do they all have to be very different?
Very what?
Different in the
Different.
body.
Different. Okay. Bodily difference. Yeah. Well, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's in the heart of every living entity. And he knows everything we desire. So, because people have different desires, add on top of that, they have limited free will. So, man proposes, God disposes. That means whatever a person desires, they eventually get it. Now, if you die thinking about, let's say, oh well, I was very dark skinned in this lifetime, but I always wanted to have light skin. Well, if they die thinking like that, the next life they have light skin.
Mm-hmm.
So man proposes, God disposes. Whatever we're thinking of at the moment of death, and based on our karma also, that's what we get in the next lifetime. Now, in the next lifetime, we can desire other things. You see, just like you might have a desire for a really nice car, and you work hard, and you buy a nice car, and you choose the color of the car and the type of car you're going to get. So we always have different desires, and Krishna is in our heart. And according to our previous karma, and according to the desires we have presently, Krishna will give us whatever we deserve. Therefore, if we desire only Krishna, that means we get the greatest, most wonderful benediction or blessing. We'll have Krishna. But if we're desiring houses and cars and and televisions and so many other things, all material things. Well, we might get them, but it just keeps us basically contaminated because instead of using our intelligence to come closer to Krishna, we're misusing it to forget Krishna by becoming entangled in all these material desires. Everything depends on what you're thinking about and what you're desiring. So you have to look into yourself. Don't look outside. Look into yourself. What is your desire? What are you thinking about? You see. And based on your previous karma and the unfulfilled desires from your previous life and the desires they have now, and based on your karma, Krishna rewards you those things. So, but it's always going to be something mixed. It's not going to be pure. It's always going to be a mix of good and bad. Until we come to Krishna consciousness, where we're only desiring Krishna, then it's all good. Otherwise, our desires are usually a mixed bag of good and bad. And Krishna will give you only up to what you deserve based on your previous karma. So what we want to do is become karma free and desire only Krishna and serve it through service and love. Then we become liberated. But if we have millions of desires, many, many desires, and we're not satisfied with whatever we are getting, because we're always going to be limited by our previous life, then we will always stay in the material world, birth after birth, by never being satisfied. How do you become satisfied? By giving up all material desires and then filling up all desires to please Krishna. In other words, you get rid of all the material desires and you replace them with spiritual desires. Now, the Mayavadis, they think that the way to actually become purified is to give up all desires and meditate on nothingness. And that's not possible. You can do that for a little while, but you will eventually not be satisfied with that. So then the Mayavadis will have even one desire, immediately they fall down from their position. So the whole, let's say, process of Krishna consciousness is purify desires. We all have desires. Everybody has desires. But if you purify desires through Krishna consciousness, hearing lectures, reading the Shastra, and associating with good devotees, then you attain the real goal of human life, which is go back to Godhead. So, what is material life all about? Well, the real goal of material life is to purify all these false desires and replace them with real desires for service and love for Krishna, and actually engage in those services. Now, there's a special thing about Kali Yuga. If you have good desires, but for some reason or other you're not able to achieve them, simply by thinking of them, you get the good karma. Just by thinking of good desires. So if we always think of doing good things for Krishna, even if we're not able to do it for one reason or other, we will still be liberated because our mind is full of beautiful desires to please the Lord. So that's called meditation. It's mystic meditation. when you're always desiring wonderful things for Krishna. You want to build a temple for Krishna. You want to have a nice van to go out on Sankirtan and distribute books and preach. All these things, all these purified desires lead to you being able to go back to Godhead. So everything depends on what we're thinking of, what we're desiring. If we learn to desire only good things based on Krishna consciousness, you'll be able to achieve those desires because Krishna will help you. And you'll be able to remember Krishna at the moment of death and go back to Godhead. But if you watch television and read the pornography or see pornographic movies and listen always to political speeches and all those nonsense things that people do, your mind becomes corrupted and your desires become corrupted. And therefore, you'll have to stay in the material world and going through, all the 8,400,000 species of life. So, Krishna consciousness is all about purified desires and purified activities. Haribol.
Very good question. And perfect answer.
Any other questions?
Maharaj, I might be having a desire to eat a palatable dish. But even though I tend to offer it to Krishna first, my thought process is to have or cherish that dish more than so doing it for Krishna. So how to get rid of those thoughts?
Well, what's in the dish?
And in any
I mean, even if it is vegetarian and so on, but the desire started with, that's what you're saying, right? So you start
feel myself or have that enjoyment myself, but I'm bringing Krishna in place. Still, my thoughts are to enjoy the dish more than Krishna.
Well, you see, it's just like there is a thin line between bona fide and unbona fide. Bona fide means you're not attached to something for sense gratification. Unbona fide is you're attached to something for sense gratification. So let's say you're desiring, some kind of sweet cake, right? And that is, in your mind. And even though you offer it to Krishna, but actually, now, if you offer it to Krishna, it's okay.
But even while offering, my thoughts are to.
All right, but then it's contaminated. Then it's contaminated. Yeah.
So how to get rid of those contamination?
By hearing the Shastra, regularly hearing, not just once, but hearing it every day. And eventually you'll see that, in fact, you can look it up right now. Prabhupada says that a devotee should not eat opulent food. They should eat very simple food. Stay away from highly opulent food and drink. So what do the karmis do? They'll have champagne, they'll have opulent food, right? And they can become corrupted by it. But the devotee just eats very simple food, and it's always offered to Krishna. So it's prasadam, right? But it should not be, very opulent food. It should be simple food. Right? What's it say?
Prabhupada emphasized devotees to consume food that is sattvic, pure and wholesome, and offered to Krishna before consumption. And opulent foods, specifically moderation. While Prabhupada did not specifically mandate staying away from all, he emphasized simplicity and moderation in eating.
Yeah. And you're not supposed to eat very opulent food. You're supposed to eat simple food.
Yeah, devotees are encouraged to eat in a balanced manner, avoiding both overindulgence and excessive austerity.
Okay.
Some people do the other extreme.
Yeah.
More balanced is what.
We're not meant to eat opulent food because eventually it'll affect our consciousness. Just eat simple food.
Only in but there is a feast and festivals.
The thing
So
I was
on special occasions and festivals, opulent and elaborate dishes may be prepared and offered to Krishna and then shared among devotees as well.
But those things I never stopped in ISKCON. Like I never had this many festivals throughout my life, like before ISKCON. We had like very opulent food and too many festivals, and we can say no to the liquor.
Well,
They still take little.
that's for the neophyte devotees, but after a little while, you stop eating very opulent food. You eat prasadam, but you won't make it opulent every time. It's simple.
Yeah, probably most of the devotees in our temple, we have to adapt the simple standards.
In the beginning, you can have opulent food, right? But as time goes on, you become a minimalist. You stop trying to overeat and overindulge. Just eat simple food. It's prasadam.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
What you don't want to do is to say, well, today I'm going to have, lemon meringue pie, and I'm going to eat this, and I'm going to eat that, and while you're thinking of the offering.
yes, that part is happening at least to me, man.
Yeah, well, that means that you're not in the right consciousness to cook. That everything depends on the consciousness you have when you're preparing the food, and then you're cooking the food, and you're offering the food. So if you have a Krishna conscious mind doing those three things, then when Krishna offers back the food as prasadam, you eat it, but moderately, and you share it with others. And you're not like lusting. So Prabhupada says he was sick, and he asked. He was in a hospital, but he was in a sick bed, and one devotee was taking care of him. And Prabhupada asked, "How are the devotees? Are they eating well?" And the devotee said, "Yeah, they're eating well." And Prabhupada said that, "Are they enjoying the prasadam?" I said, "Well, there's some people that are a little bit upset. They don't think prasadam is very good." And Prabhupada said, "That's not good. It should be very good, you know." And what's the purpose? Well, he said, that's the only sense gratification we have. So it should be very good. But it should be simple. Like, well, here's my dinner, right? I don't have like 15 different preparations. This is one thing.
Yeah.
Right. But it's very good. I don't need any more than that. So more people have died from overeating than from undereating.
Very true.
Yeah. Like Jayapataka Maharaj, before, every time he'd sit down to eat, there would be 60 different offerings. 60, not 5 or 6, 60 every time, right? Because he would invite me sometime to eat with him. But one dish coming after another. And look what happened to him, right? Yeah. Or what happened to him? Basically, he had a heart attack. You can't eat like that over and over again. Eventually, your body can't take it. So we should be very moderate, in our eating. Also, walking every day is very, very good, and taking rest early, bathing twice a day, and so forth. All these things are to have simple living, high thinking. If you have complicated living, then you'll have low thinking. If you have simple thinking, high, and in other words, simple thinking and simple living, you won't have any problems. Haribol. Okay.